Today, we're diving into 10 erased inventions that could have changed the world. So let's start with the one that's been haunting engineers and dreamers for over a century, Tesla's free energy generator. At the dawn of the 20th century, Nikola Tesla believed the entire Earth could act like a giant battery. In 1899, he built the Wardenclyffe Tower, a strange lightning-spitting structure on Long Island that could transmit electricity through the air. Not through cables, not through gas or coal, but through the planet itself. Witnesses claimed they saw light bulbs glowing miles away without any wires. Tesla said his system could tap into what he called radiant energy, the invisible electricity humming throughout space. His dream to make power as free and universal as sunlight. But then it all stopped. Within 2 years, the project was dismantled. His financier, J.P. Morgan, famously asked, "If anyone can draw on the power, where do we put the meter?" And just like that, funding vanished. The tower was destroyed, and Tesla's notes mysteriously disappeared. Decades later, the US Office of Alien Property seized more than 80 trunks of his work after his death. Among them were rumored blueprints for a global wireless energy grid. And even today, over 5,000 patents are classified under the Inventions Secrecy Act, some possibly related to Tesla's research. Modern scientists are still trying to replicate his ideas. MIT researchers have successfully transmitted power wirelessly over short distances. And NASA uses resonant inductive coupling in space tech, the same principle Tesla described. So was he a century ahead of his time, or a visionary too dangerous to let succeed? Either way, he proved that sometimes the brightest ideas attract the darkest shadows. And if you think Tesla's story is strange, wait until you hear about the doctor who might have found a way to cure cancer and then vanished from medical history. The Rife cancer cure machine. You'd think that by now, with all our medical breakthroughs, we'd know every tool that's ever worked against cancer. But back in the 1930s, one man may have built a device that could destroy cancer cells using nothing but sound and light, and then saw his life's work erased. His name was Dr. Royal Raymond Rife, and his creation was the universal microscope. Unlike other microscopes, his didn't kill the living organisms it observed. It magnified up to 60,000 times, revealing something nobody had ever seen before: viruses alive and moving inside human tissue. Using that microscope, Rife claimed he could identify each microorganism by its unique electromagnetic frequency, like a musical note. Then, by generating the exact same frequency, he could make the harmful cells vibrate themselves to death, leaving healthy tissue unharmed. It's a concept that modern physics calls resonant frequency destruction, the same principle that can shatter a glass when a singer hits the right note. In 1934, Rife's machine was reportedly tested in clinical trials in California. 16 terminal cancer patients were treated, and within 70 days, all had either improved dramatically or fully recovered. The supervising physician was preparing to announce the results publicly when he died suddenly, and the records disappeared. Soon after, medical authorities declared Rife's methods fraudulent. His lab was raided, his machines destroyed, and his supporters silenced. By the late 1930s, his name had been erased from textbooks. But here's where it gets fascinating. Decades later, researchers at MIT and Harvard Medical School began studying how targeted electromagnetic waves could destroy specific pathogens. In 2016, a Nature Scientific Reports paper confirmed that cancer cells respond to vibrational frequencies, sometimes collapsing when exposed to resonance. Sound familiar? It's almost as if Rife's forgotten experiments were pointing in the same direction modern biophysics is heading today. Today, frequency-based therapies exist, from ultrasound tumor treatments to photodynamic therapy, all echoing Rife's original idea that light and vibration might heal what chemicals can't. Whether he was silenced by conspiracy or simply misunderstood, one thing's certain: he was onto something big. And if that doesn't give you chills, the next invention might, because it claimed to conquer gravity itself: the Brown anti-gravity device. Imagine a world where planes don't need engines, rockets don't need fuel, and gravity itself is just optional. In 1928, physicist Thomas Townsend Brown stumbled onto something that seemed to make that dream possible, and then watched it vanish into military secrecy. Brown discovered what he called the Biefeld-Brown effect. The idea that when you charge a capacitor, two metal plates separated by an insulator with high voltage, it produces thrust. The object literally moves toward the positive end, defying gravity. He wasn't talking about magnetism or aerodynamics. He was talking about electrogravitics, the manipulation of gravity using electricity. By the early 1950s, Brown was showing working prototypes, disc-shaped craft that hovered and flew in circles under their own power. Witnesses saw them moving silently without propellers, jets, or exhaust. It was pure electricity, a form of propulsion that shouldn't have been possible. Naturally, the military took interest. Brown's research was absorbed into classified projects with names like Winter Haven and Project Y. By 1956, his technology was placed under national security restrictions and his patents quietly disappeared from public record. Officially, electrogravitics did not produce practical results. Unofficially, aerospace companies like Lockheed, Boeing, and Northrop suddenly began classified research into electrostatic propulsion that still remains under wraps. Aviation Week magazine even reported that Brown's ideas were influencing next-generation aircraft design right before those reports vanished too. Fast forward to today, and researchers at NASA's Eagle Works and the US Naval Research Lab are experimenting with field propulsion concepts eerily similar to Brown's. Even modern EM drive experiments devices that create thrust without fuel sound like echoes of his original findings. Brown's story raises one of science's most provocative questions. Was his discovery buried because it didn't work, or because it did? And if you think anti-gravity is strange, just wait until you hear about the man who claimed he could power entire factories using nothing but sound waves and music. The Keely motor mystery. Picture this, a 19th century inventor walks into a room, hums a note, and massive steel machinery comes to life powered by sound. That's not a scene from a steampunk novel. It's what witnesses claimed John Worrell Keely could do in 1872. Keely's creation was called the sympathetic vibratory motor, a machine that supposedly harnessed the hidden energy of sound waves and molecular resonance. He said he could draw power from the ether, the invisible vibrational field surrounding all matter. His demonstrations stunned scientists and investors alike. Without steam, coal, or fuel of any kind, his motor could lift tons of weight, drive industrial tools, and run indefinitely. At public events in Philadelphia, crowds saw him trigger machines with musical tones and tuning forks. It looked like magic, but Keely called it sympathetic vibration, aligning sound frequencies with the natural oscillations of atoms, unlocking a kind of acoustic energy we still barely understand. His investors were thrilled until they realized what it meant. If sound alone could generate limitless energy, then coal, oil, and steam, the backbone of the Industrial Revolution, would become worthless. So instead of celebrating, they turned on him. Funding vanished. His lab was seized. After his death, skeptics claimed his machine was a fraud powered by hidden compressed air. But here's the twist. Modern physics has caught up with some of Keely's wilder ideas. We now know that molecules do vibrate, and resonance can trigger powerful reactions. Acoustic levitation using sound to lift small objects is a verified scientific technique. And experiments in sonoluminescence have shown that collapsing sound waves can produce flashes of light and extreme temperatures. Sound can, in a sense, create power. Researchers in quantum mechanics even describe zero-point energy, the background hum of the universe itself, an idea eerily close to Keely's etheric force. Was Keely a fraud, a visionary, or just a man too early for his time? Whatever the truth, he dared to suggest something radical, that maybe energy isn't something we burn, but something we tune into. And speaking of strange forces, what if you could make metal float bend, or even change its atomic structure using only electromagnetic fields? That's exactly what one Canadian inventor claimed to have done, before his lab mysteriously disappeared. The Hutchison Effect. In the late 1970s, a Canadian inventor named John Hutchison was just trying to recreate some of Tesla's old experiments in his apartment when the laws of physics decided to take a vacation. Using a chaotic setup of Tesla coils, Van de Graaff generators, and radio frequency transmitters, Hutchison accidentally created what's now called the Hutchison Effect. What happened next sounds like science fiction, but was witnessed, filmed, and even investigated by military observers. Objects began to levitate, chunks of metal tools, even a cannonball. Steel rods bent like rubber, wood fused with metal. And in some cases, materials seemed to transmute, literally changing their composition. If true, Hutchison had stumbled upon a form of electromagnetic field interference that could weaken molecular bonds and disrupt gravity. He called it a chaotic resonance zone, where the rules of energy and matter twisted in unpredictable ways. Government agencies soon took interest. Hutchison's lab was raided and his equipment confiscated for national security reasons. He later claimed the Canadian and US militaries incorporated his findings into classified weapons and propulsion projects research that's never been made public. Mainstream physicists dismissed the phenomenon, saying his results couldn't be replicated under controlled conditions. But here's where it gets interesting. Modern research into electromagnetic metamaterials and quantum levitation is starting to mirror what Hutchison described decades ago. In 2023, engineers at MIT and Caltech successfully levitated ultralight objects using laser-generated electromagnetic fields. Even NASA's research into electrostatic propulsion uses overlapping field frequencies almost identical to Hutchison's diagrams. Was he a hoaxer or an untrained genius who stumbled onto something real? Hard to say. But as physicist Richard Feynman once said, "If it disagrees with experiment, it's wrong, but if it agrees even once, pay attention." And if electromagnetic fields could alter gravity and matter, then maybe the ancients knew more than we think, like the man who claimed he rediscovered how the Egyptians built the pyramids single-handedly. The Coral Castle Mystery. In the quiet town of Homestead, Florida, stands one of the strangest monuments in America. Coral Castle, built between 1923 and 1951 by a single man named Edward Leeds Calnan. He was just 5 feet tall, weighed barely 100 pounds, and yet somehow managed to move coral blocks weighing up to 30 tons each alone at night without machinery. Tourists still visit today, walking through perfectly balanced gates and megalithic walls that look like something from ancient Egypt. The big question: how did he do it? Leeds Calnan claimed he had rediscovered the secret of the pyramids. Neighbors reported seeing him work after dark, lifting gigantic stones as if they floated. Some said the rocks hummed or vibrated before moving as if magnetism or sound were involved. And in his small workshop, investigators later found homemade electromagnetic coils generators and strange diagrams titled magnetic current. After his death in 1951, the US government seized his tools and research notebooks, which were never made public. Whatever method he used to build Coral Castle remains an unsolved engineering mystery. Modern scientists who've studied the site agree on one thing: the precision is unreal. Some stones are aligned so perfectly they pivot with the touch of a finger. The craftsmanship rivals Stonehenge, yet Leeds Calnan had no cranes, no concrete, no assistance. Could he have discovered a form of acoustic levitation using sound or vibration to neutralize weight? It sounds wild, but NASA has replicated limited versions of this in microgravity experiments. And physicists at Tokyo University have recently levitated polystyrene beads using nothing but focused sound waves. Whether Leeds Calnan tapped into magnetism resonance or something still beyond physics, Coral Castle stands as proof that sometimes the impossible is carved in stone. And while we're on the subject of magnets and motion, another inventor from Britain claimed he made a magnetic engine that could both power itself and fly before his lab went up in flames. The CEG magnetic generator. In the 1960s, British engineer John Searl claimed to have invented something that made both physicists and governments nervous: a machine that could generate limitless power while also defying gravity. He called it the Searl Effect generator, or SEG. At first glance, it looked simple: a series of magnetic rollers spinning around a circular plate. But the secret, Searl said, was in the arrangement of the magnetic fields. As the rollers spun, they generated electric current, and at a certain speed, the machine became weightless. Witnesses described seeing the device lift off the ground and glow with bluish light, as if surrounded by a magnetic halo. Unlike traditional generators, it didn't need fuel. It produced both electricity and thrust, seemingly extracting energy from the magnetic field of the Earth itself. If true, this single machine could have powered homes, cars, and even spacecraft indefinitely. But then came the shutdown. In 1968, British authorities raided Searl's workshop, citing electrical interference with aircraft navigation. His prototypes and research were confiscated, his lab destroyed, and he was imprisoned for unauthorized energy generation. When he got out, every trace of his project was gone. It sounds like science fiction, yet modern research hints that parts of Searl's concept weren't impossible. Physicists now study electrodynamic tethers that generate current from Earth's magnetic field, the same principle Searl described decades ago. And NASA's recent studies into superconducting magnetic propulsion use arrangements strikingly similar to his designs. Even the phenomenon he reported, spontaneous lift under rotating magnetic fields, has reappeared in plasmonic physics and quantum levitation experiments. So maybe Searl wasn't breaking physics. Maybe he was glimpsing a corner of it we still don't understand. If Tesla dreamed of a world powered by invisible energy, Searl tried to build it and paid the price. But he wasn't the only one to challenge how we think engines should work. In Austria, one man claimed he could create energy not by explosion, but by implosion, and his engines might have cleaned the air while doing it. The Schauberger implosion engine. During the chaos of World War II, Austrian inventor Victor Schauberger was working on something that seemed to rewrite the rules of energy itself. While everyone else was perfecting engines based on explosion, combustion, heat, and noise, Schauberger believed nature's secret lay in the opposite process implosion. He noticed how trout could swim effortlessly upstream even against powerful currents, how whirlpools in rivers seemed to generate force from still water. His conclusion was radical vortex motion. The spiral flow of air or water could concentrate energy inward, creating cooling power and even lift. His engines, called repulsines, looked like metal UFOs' smooth disks designed to spin air into spiraling vortices. Witnesses claimed these devices could generate enormous thrust-purify air and water and even power themselves once started. Some reports suggest German military engineers took notice and began experiments on disc-shaped aircraft based on his designs. When the war ended, US intelligence seized Schauberger's research. He was brought to America under classified contracts where he was forced to sign away his inventions. Within months, he was dead officially of natural causes, but his notebooks and prototypes disappeared. The irony: modern physics now recognizes vortex energy as a real and powerful force. Hydrodynamic turbines inspired by Schauberger's designs are used in eco-engineering today. NASA studies vortex flow for jet efficiency. Even implosion reactors, systems that compress fluids inward to extract kinetic energy, are being explored as clean energy alternatives. Schauberger once said, "You comprehend nature by copying her, not by conquering her." His implosion engines could have been a path toward power that cleans rather than pollutes, an engine that works like a forest, not a furnace. But there was one last experiment that might have gone even further, not just bending nature's forces, but space and time themselves. Because in 1943, the US Navy may have tried to make a warship disappear, and it just might have worked. The Philadelphia experiment. It's 1943 and the world is at war. The US Navy is desperate for an advantage, a way to make ships invisible to enemy radar. So they turned to an experimental idea based on Einstein's unified field theory. A theory so advanced, it tried to merge gravity, electromagnetism, and time into a single framework. The result was the infamous Philadelphia experiment. And if even part of the story is true, it may have crossed the line between science and science fiction. According to declassified fragments and eyewitnesses, the destroyer escort USS Eldridge was fitted with massive electromagnetic field generators at the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard. On October 28, 1943, the generators were switched on, and in a flash of blinding green-blue light, the ship vanished. Minutes later, it reportedly appeared hundreds of miles away at Norfolk, Virginia, before reappearing back in Philadelphia. Witnesses described horrifying side effects. Some crew members were said to have been fused into the ship's metal hull. Others reappeared dazed, disoriented, claiming they had fallen through time. The Navy quickly denied everything, claiming the experiment was simply about radar camouflage. But decades later, researchers found letters from a man named Carlos Allende, who claimed to have witnessed the event from another ship, describing the Eldridge surrounded by a glowing haze before blinking out of existence. While most historians dismiss the story as a myth, aspects of it still intrigue physicists. Modern research into electromagnetic cloaking and space-time manipulation, including DARPA's quantum stealth programs, sound eerily similar in goal-bend light and fields around an object until it effectively disappears. Theoretically, manipulating fields at that scale could also distort space, exactly what Einstein's equations predicted. And here's where things get uncomfortable. In 2005, a declassified US Navy document revealed that electromagnetic field tests were indeed conducted on ships in the 1940s. The purpose wasn't teleportation, but the math overlaps. Whether myth or suppressed experiment, the Philadelphia story reminds us how easily science and secrecy blur. Because when governments explore the edges of physics, they don't always tell the world what they find. And that brings us full circle to the bigger question. What if all these stories, Tesla's tower, Rife's machine, Brown's craft, Schauberger's vortex, and the Eldridge's teleportation were fragments of the same truth? So what do these erased inventions really tell us? Maybe they're not just stories about secret labs or suppressed geniuses. Maybe they're mirrors reflecting how fragile human progress can be. From Tesla's free energy tower to Rife's sound-based cancer cure, from Brown's anti-gravity disks to Schauberger's implosion engines, every one of these ideas shared a dangerous trait. They threatened to make the world too free. Free energy means no power companies. Free healing means no billion-dollar pharma. Free propulsion means no fuel monopolies. It's easy to dismiss them as myths, but here's what's undeniable. Whenever an idea promises abundance without profit, it tends to vanish. Not always because it's false, but because it's uncomfortable. And yet fragments of these ideas keep resurfacing. Wireless power transmission, Tesla's dream, now used in Qi chargers and electric vehicles. Frequency medicine. Rife's vision now studied at MIT and Stanford under bioresonance. Anti-gravity Brown's obsession now echoed in NASA's ion propulsion and electromagnetic drive projects. It's as if science never truly loses its ghosts. It just rediscovers them generation after generation. And maybe that's the real message here. Innovation doesn't die. It hides, waits, and returns when the world is finally ready. Because progress isn't just about discovering what works. It's about daring to ask why it was hidden. So maybe the greatest mystery isn't whether these inventions were real, but whether humanity was ready for them. What do you think? Which of these stories, Tesla's wireless world, Rife's healing light, Brown's flying discs, do you believe could actually be true? Or better yet, which one do you hope is true? If you love diving into the strange space between science and mystery, the zone where history meets possibility, subscribe, because every week we explore the questions that science forgot to answer. After all, the beauty of discovery isn't in having all the answers, it's in learning how deep the mystery really goes.